Well, Pastor Yo here. Our church community is going through the book of Revelation, and we've gotten to Revelation chapter 9, and I'm trying to get this series done in a couple of months from now. So we're going to go or pass over a few chapters of some of the passages we're not going to look at on Sunday morning. So I thought I would make some short videos to deal with a little bit of those chapters that we're missing. For those who find that interesting, who find the book interesting, who want something from every chapter, this is my attempt to give you something. So we've gotten to chapter 9. We just looked at the 7 trumpets, and now we move into chapter 10. I'm going to skip over 10 on Sunday morning. So here's a short video just talking about one aspect of Revelation chapter 10. And I'm focused very much these days on the book as a whole, the chapters, the passages, but especially the theme of hope. So what's the hope that we can find in the whole book, but also bit by bit, passage by passage, chapter by chapter? I was reading in one of my study Bibles about this chapter, and the Faith Life Study Bible said this: following a time of intense judgments, so we just looked at that last Sunday, chapters 8 and 9, these 7 trumpets, this chapter, chapter 10, presents a message of hope to the people of God. And I want to know, what is that hope in this passage? And I'm going to read the last 3 verses of Revelation 10 and talk about what I believe is part of the hope of this chapter. So Revelation 10, starting at verse 9. So John, John, went to the angel and asked him to give me this little scroll that the chapter is talking about. The angel said to John, "Take it and eat it. It will turn your stomach sour, but in your mouth it will be as sweet as honey." I took the little scroll from the angel's hand and ate it. It tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach turned sour. Then I was told, "You must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings." So for me, the hope, or even the good news of this chapter, is that there is a scroll, maybe connected with the scroll of chapters 4 and 5, either like it or similar to it, or maybe the same scroll. But there is a scroll, there's communication from God. John is asked to eat the scroll, just like the prophet Ezekiel had been asked to do that years earlier. It's going to be both sweet and sour. Sweet in your mouth, sour in your stomach. I take that to be so often the communication from God or from Jesus is a sweet and sour message. There's some good news, there's some bad news. Even for Christian believers, sometimes the bad news helps us, point us to the good news. But as John takes the scroll and eats it, we're told, basically, this prophetic ministry is continuing. Even though there are these seals earlier in the book of Revelation, these trumpets, this destruction, this judgment, the prophetic ministry, communication from God is continuing, which should be good news. God still is able to, still wants to, is going to communicate with his creation. There's going to be some great news to hear. There's going to be some challenging news to hear. But John, and then I also believe the church, is meant to continue, by God's grace, this prophetic ministry. As the angel says, to many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. And for me, and for readers of the book of Revelation, that should be good news. God is still speaking. God is still communicating. God is still longing for people to come to him. So may the communication continue also through us. May we be people who are part of that amazing prophetic ministry. So I thank God for that good hope and that good news.